Okay, so first off, we are still starting with introductions, and this is just going to be for anybody who was not here. So was there anybody who was not here for either of the previous two sessions? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So I'm assuming you all know who we are. Yeah, so we're just going to skip introductions. So as I said today, before today, we are going to be going over the design process for merch, promotional materials, and characters. So we will be starting with promo and merch. So take it away, Max.
All right. Hello. So let's go to the next slide. So promo and merch are kind of like basically how you put either your brand or your logo or your team's name out there, so to speak. And these can come in the form of movie posters, ads, trailers, clothing, vinyl. Basically anything that can have a logo on it can be considered promotional material. All right. Next slide. All right, so here's some movie posters for The Incredibles 2. And so this can be categorized as promotional material for a movie because it's depicting characters, the name, as well as probably the release date somewhere near the bottom and the company that made them. All right, next slide. All right, so merchandising is usually based off your own style. And if you attended the first session, people often follow the style guide when making merchandise so that it kind of fits into the company that you're advertising for. And then merch for brands has to be uniform and instantly recognizable. So how many of the people here have seen like the Nike Just Do It with the little swoosh? So that's pretty recognizable. When anybody hears Just Do It, they think of Nike. So that's why it's kind of like on a lot of their, I guess, clothing, and it's in a lot of their ads. It's because it's very recognizable and is tied to Nike. So it makes you think of the company, and it makes you think of, oh wow, say that shirt looks really good on that person and it's from Nike, maybe I want to get one. So then it's kind of like putting your name out there. And so at Pally, or on Pally Robotics, we have hoodies and shirts and buttons. Yes, this is last year's hoodie and shirt. So we have hoodies, shirts, buttons. Last year we had keychains, and those are what we call our merchandise. So it's basically things that people can buy, or we give them out at competitions so that people can have, I guess, it's like a little memento of our team. Next slide. Why do we need these things? So promotion gets people interested into your product and or movie. And so that's important because if you have a large group where people are interested in it, then you have a higher likelihood of people either going and seeing that movie or watching that TV show or going and buying that article of clothing. Merch is useful because indirect promotion. So if I'm wearing, say, a Poly Robotics hoodie, and you see me walking down the street, you might be like, oh, hey, what's Poly Robotics? And then you get interested. So therefore, that's indirect advertising. And then it also attracts attention towards your brand. So if you maybe have heard Poly Robotics and you see someone like wearing some of their merchandise, then you could like go up and ask them like, hey, what is this? And then that basically just drew attention to what your brand is. Also, it's not on here, but it can help and generate revenue, which means that it can make so in our case, it's the robotics team, it can make our robotics team more sustainable or self-sustainable if we're able to sell things for profit. All right, branding. So to build a recognizable brand, consistency is always key. Using the same font or the same logo, same color is all really important when you're making something. So for an example, Poly Robotics has a specific color green that we use in all of our graphic design. But then when we have something that's like a shirt or a hoodie, we try our best to match the color to the Poly Robotics color. And then advertising your brands, this is how you get people to know your brand so that they can buy your merchandising. This can be anything from putting up bulletin boards or putting up like posters to advertising online. Basically anything that you can do to get people interested and see your brand. And then designing good assets is important because if they say like, see on a bulletin board, hey, go to this place to buy this, and they go to that website and they're like, wait, I don't like this website, I don't like the interface, it might draw them away. So having that is really important, so it kind of hooks people in, and that they become more interested in what you have to offer. So yeah.
So these are some of the things that you would be using when designing good assets for your brand and on your merchandise and your promotional material. These are also some of the things that we went over during the first lesson. So when using fonts, there are 4 main types of fonts you would choose from: serif, sans serif, script, and decorative. And then when you're mixing fonts, it's important to use fonts that contrast and not use 2 similar fonts together. And there are some fonts that just look unprofessional, such as Comic Sans, that you just shouldn't use in general. And then next, when using colors, some of the common types of color harmonies that you could use together would be complementary colors, which are colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel, and then analogous colors, which are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And then lastly, for white space, the leading and the margins. For those of you that might not remember, leading is the spacing between lines. So for example, when you're writing an essay, you would be using double space. So the spacing between the lines is greater than, say, if you were single spacing your essay. And then for margins, you should keep the space between the edge of the paper and your text consistent on the top, bottom, and sides. So these are just some things to keep in mind when you're designing, say, a poster. So next, moving on to the next part would be creating characters. So this takes us back to animation, and creating good characters for an animation is very important because the animation is really just telling the story of your characters. The characters are the focus of the story. And it's kind of like casting people for a movie, except you have complete control over what your characters look like. And that is why character design is so important, because you can convey so many things about a person through the way they dress, the way they walk, and things about their environment and what kind of background they come from and where they grew up, or like what kind of life they live. So when designing your character, since you have complete control, again, over the exact look of your character for an animation, you can exaggerate features to better convey certain things about them, like their height or like the shape that the character is inspired by, which we will cover again later. And you should always have a purpose and a reason for every part of your character. You should be able to explain why things are there on that character, just like when you are putting props in a background of a set. And another way you can design characters, other than starting with a concept, would be to use shapes and colors, like I will show you here. So these are 3 basic shapes: a circle, a triangle, and a rectangle. But using these shapes, you can create character designs that convey certain traits. For example, on the left, we have a circle. So circles are generally round, obviously, since they have no edges or points. And they can convey traits such as being friendly or being soft because they are round, as opposed to something like a triangle, which has pointy edges. It has points and it has straight edges. So that would convey traits that are more like rebellious or aggressive. And then also for a rectangle, since rectangles are pretty just sturdy looking, that would convey traits of formality or reliability. And that may sound kind of abstract when I'm talking about it now, but on this next slide here, we have 3 examples of characters that are inspired by shapes. So can anyone tell me what shape the character right here on the left is inspired by? No, okay. Well, then the character on the left is a circle, or a circular character. the general shape of the character is very round. And then the character here, the next one in the middle here, is very rectangular. And the one on the right is very triangular. So some things you can take away from that I said, that I explained previously would be like, for example, this rectangular character. He's very stiff looking and very like formal looking. And part of that is because of the way he is very like boxy. So like I said here with the rectangle, formal and like sturdy are just some of the traits that you can help convey using these shapes. So that's just one way you can think about designing characters. And then just important things about designing characters would just be, you can experiment with different drafts and different revisions of your character. You should draw different versions of your character to best convey what you want to show about them from their design. Like I said before, you should be incorporating parts of your story onto the design of the character.